thing. Yep, there we go. Perfect.
Just
Okay.
gonna make sure it's up. It's up. All right. Well, we'll wait.
The
We'll wait for some
StreamYard's not
people.
going to work either because it never works. So we're
I'll
going to
have it
like,
open.
yeah, just
I'll
have it
have it
open.
open. But anyway, welcome everyone. We're gonna just be live for I don't know about 15 minutes to a half hour because there isn't much to talk about this team besides the absolute nonsense that we've been dealing with for the last few weeks. But we're lucky enough to be joined by Alex from Big Blue in the Bronx. As you can tell, my co-host Alex has TGT Alex to separate the Alexes. But Alex from Big Blue in the Bronx, how you doing, man?
Well, I mean, other than the loss today, I'm doing fine. Obviously, the holiday weekend was fun. Going to Florida on Tuesday, so hopefully that will get my mind away from this terrible football team. Next week, I'm
Good.
also vacationing as well. So,
Wonderful.
other than the state of the New York Giants right now, which is a very terrible state, I'm actually doing pretty good.
That's good. And you deserve a vacation because watching this team, I feel like every Giants fan deserves a vacation for just how bad they perform on a daily basis. And, it seemed like that boat trip that we saw this week was very worthwhile for Daniel Jones and his receivers because after that picture, which I believe that was in the off season, right? And it just surfaced because Sterling Shepard was going through his yearly recap of 2021. Yeah, that after that picture and the season that these wide receivers have had, that doesn't surprise me because these boat trip pictures just don't seem to ever do well with this team. And then you have Odell Beckham, and I saw Big Blue United tweeted that Odell Beckham has more touchdowns with the Rams than all the Giants wide receivers combined. That's sad, to say the least.
Certainly.
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised to say the least. I mean, it's the state of the Giants offense for you, so.
Right. I want to ask you a question because you tweeted in the preview to the live stream saying that be on the live stream or you're supporting Joe Judge coming back. So I assume that shows your views on it.
Well, I said both. If I'm not mistaken, I said both Judge and Gettleman. But yeah. I'm not for bringing either back, and I've been very against the blood, the pound of flesh that a lot of fans want. And in terms of any sport, you'll get those fans, those fiery fans are like, oh, well, you got to fire this guy if 2 games don't go correctly. But I believe firing them both is, the best way to get this team in shape again, even though it seems kind of counterproductive. I mean, the way the Giants are going to do it and the way it looks like is they're going to bring Joe Judge back and bring another GM to either fit what he's trying to do or just have another GM come in here, which really doesn't make any sense at all. It's either you fire everybody or you don't fire anybody. You just have one more year of the process because the New York Jets, how many times have they hired a head coach, kept the same GM or vice versa, and it hasn't worked out for them? That's why they're a pretty bad football team. They have been a pretty bad football team over the last few years. And Mara's just so nose blind to the whole situation. He's just blind to the whole situation overall. And I don't understand, where that thinking comes from. Gettleman needs to be gone. Obviously, I kind of said that already. He's made a lot of bad moves. And, he has brought some talent in within the last 2 years that have worked out on its individual standpoint. But this is not an individual's game. It's a team sport. This isn't tennis. This isn't golf. This isn't this sport or that sport, whatever. It is a team sport. And that's where a team has to work together. And sometimes the bad talent's going to override the good talent. The good talent's going to override the bad talent. That's really what has happened this year at certain times. And Joe Judge, he just hasn't convinced me that he is a future head coach in this league. Maybe he will be a couple of years from now, but at some points you could say, well, he wasn't put in the right situation because he was only given 2 years and they wasted $200 million in free agency this past year to go win ball games, even though they only won 6 the prior year. You know what? Yeah, you could say that, but they went 1-3 with a pretty healthy team, minus Nick Gates and Shane Lemieux the first 4 games of the season. They went 1-3. So I don't understand where that comes from. The Falcons game was very winnable. The Chiefs game was very winnable. And, obviously a lot of fans, including myself, had a problem with Jason Garrett. He was fired. And this offense has progressively gotten worse, which is so terrible. And I don't know where to go at this point. I think this is the worst season I've watched as a New York Giants fan. You know, in 2017, which a lot of people compare it to because the expectations, the way that it actually just ended in terms of the season, you know, with the Eli thing, whatever. At least you had Eli Manning, and Eli Manning did lift a lot of practice squad receivers over their floor, I should say. I'm rambling a little bit, but in terms of that, you know, he made the practice squad receivers look better than they were. Hunter Sharp, Khalif Raymond, who's currently on the Detroit Lions. He made a lot of guys, even when he wasn't at his best, look better than they were. Tavares King, you know, he would at least put up 150, 170, 190, 200 to 230 yards per game. Now with these backup quarterbacks, we're not even getting 100 yards per game. We're not even getting 10 yards per game in terms of the passing side. So, you know, it's just a sad state of affairs for the New York Giants. And with the way John Mara is thinking, nothing is going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, and it seems like Joe Judge is here to stay. He defended himself for his life, for his job, it seemed, in the press conference. I actually have a little, like, minute and a half clip here. I know you said you don't like listening to that press conference, but
It's
sorry.
your guys' channel, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We're just subjecting you to torture, unfortunately.
We're subjecting you to torture.
This is what happens when you come on the live stream.
It's not going to change much that if I already haven't been through or have, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so it's unfortunate here. I'm just gonna play the clip. Hopefully, everyone. Wait.
I don't hear it.
You hear it now?
Let's see. No.
Oh, well, that's great.
Here, you figure that out. But for right now, I mean, I want to respond to Alex's point of, like, it looks like. Oh. No, it looks like Joe.
All right, but I'll tell you right now.
All right.
Cutting you off.
Now, you guys ain't been in the building for 2 years now with this coach. All right, but I'll tell you right now. All right, if you're in the damn building, you walking through our locker room, you ain't seeing that crap you saw before. All right? You ain't seeing guys right now planning vacations. You ain't seeing golf clubs in front of players' locker. You ain't seeing that stuff. Okay? You ain't seeing that. All right, and that's not because it's some high school program we're cracking with. It's because our guys understand how to play together as a team and they understand the process of how they're going through. So I can go into a whole X's and O's evaluation. I can go through a roster evaluation. I can go through a lot of things for you right now, okay? I do it every day myself. I go through all that stuff. But in terms of the next step to take, I can tell you right now, okay? I know we're a whole lot closer to where we're going than we are further away. I can tell you that right now. I can tell you we got more players here who are going to be free agents next year, all right, who are in my office every day begging to come back. I know that. Okay, I know that. Or players that we coached last year that still call me twice a week talking about, you know, how much they wish they were still here even though they're getting paid more somewhere else.
Now that's BS.
Okay, so I know we've got the right foundational pieces in. I know we have some players, some key positions, right, that are guys you can build with, keep carrying on. All right. I know we got the right temperament. I know we got the right culture in terms of teaching the players. Okay, which is why I don't come up here and try to assassinate some player because I think it's going to save my. Okay. Because behind closed doors, when we shut those doors, I can tell every player to a man, look him in the eye, exactly what the hell he screwed up on and exactly how it's got to get fixed. I can tell him to hold him as accountable as can be. Because I ain't going to sit up here like some other coward sitting behind the microphone and put his players on blast. Okay? That's it. I signed up to be the head coach here. Whatever bull gets fired, better get fired for me. You got that? It's got to go through me to get to them. And that's the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
So he seems like he's really defending. He feels like his job is up in jeopardy. That's what that tells me, or at least part of it, right? There was so much more. 12 minutes he went on for, apparently, according to the beats.
Well, if I may, as I said, I don't listen to the pressers. I think they're pretty useless. You know, I have learned in the past to not take much from press conferences because a lot of the times the coaches don't want to say things to the media that they think will be a big thing or whatever the case may be. But what it seems like to me is whether his job is safe or not, Joe Judge is really trying to estrange himself from the coaches that were before him. You know, he was talking about vacations. He was talking about this. He was talking about that. He probably was talking about the boat trip. He probably knew about it and that stuff like that. And I'm not talking the recent boat trip. I'm talking about the 2016 one. But at the same time, yeah, they went on a boat trip and, you know, that's planning a vacation. And he's talking about, well, the players call me, they want to be back and a part of this team. There's nobody on taking vacations. Basically, he's saying that in his opinion, the way he sees things, these players are bought in, and just a lot of his stuff is nonsense, but all that is just presser talk that you can't say, oh, well, that's a lie. Well, of course it's a lie. That's why I said just a couple of seconds ago, I'm not going to take too much from this, but he's trying to estrange himself from past coaching staffs. And, I bet you that maybe tomorrow, one of the Denver reporters is going to ask Pat Shurmur if he ever gets up to the stand again before their next week's matchup. Hey, Joe Judge said this about you. Do you think he's mentioning you directly? And Pat Shurmur will probably be like, well, you know what? I don't care about that stuff. I'm in Denver right now. But, he was referring to his past coaches or the past coaches that came before him. But this is a train wreck. This team is a train wreck, and I don't think he has anything else to say. I'm pretty much in the mindset that a lot of the beat reporters have been really soft with him. I saw a tweet today from Art Stapleton that said the following. I actually have a bookmark if I'm going to read it in just a second. I disagree with the CBS broadcast. The early part of this game is the inept quarterback play. It's just an interesting take on Judge and slamming his coaching staff, isn't something I would agree with. So it doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. And, they've ruined Daniel Jones. Part of that is on Dave Gettleman, of course, not building an offensive line, but they've ruined Daniel Jones any talent that he had. And Daniel Jones obviously has some stuff to blame on himself too. That's right there. Also, another thing that he likes to say right there a lot. But with that being said, you have to blame this coaching staff. The defense has been, up and down, though they haven't been a lot to blame this season, only for the start of the season. And then in terms of the offensive coaching staff, I know Rob Sale's been apparently pretty pissed at Isaiah Wilson, someone who the Giants brought in on a flyer. If you don't like him, don't keep him. I mean, seriously, we're really rotating projects in here, and we're really wasting roster spots when JoJo's coming back next year. And a lot of this stuff just doesn't make any sense. And, I say this all the time, and it may be a bad excuse or whatever the case may be, but the Giants had almost the same personnel minus a quarterback in week 4 when they beat the Saints. Darius Slayton was out, Sterling Shepard was out, a couple other guys were out, and they still won that game with Kadarius Toney, who's always hurt, by the way, Kenny Galladay, who still doesn't have a touchdown. So, there's a lot of X's and O's. There's a lot of stuff to point out there, but that's not too much of a different group from what we're seeing now, minus the starting quarterback. So I don't understand what the offensive line, why they've regressed so badly, and I understand that's not a lot of talent there besides Andrew Thomas at left tackle. But with that being said, the regression. So there has to be a lot of whether Joe Judge comes back or not, there has to be a lot of changes on that offensive coaching staff. And I just genuinely believe that Joe Judge is not a guy who thinks that offense is important. An offense, that scoring points is important. I don't think he thinks that is important. I think he thinks that defense is important more in today's game. And I really think that he plays the field position game on purpose, not because, he's got whatever to work with, because he thinks his punter is good and his punter isn't good. And he thinks the special teams unit is good. But with that being said, his conservative philosophy is why I continue to pound the table for his firing.
And
I
I
agree. just want to say I agree.
You cut me off last time, so I want to get my point across. I was going to say how when you were talking about Gettleman and Judge being gone next season, wanting that, we do the same. I mean, we both want them out. The thing is, it just seems like Mara wants a yes man, whether it is a coach or a GM. He wants someone who can agree with him on any level. And I feel like I'm not going to sit here and back up Ben McAdoo when we had him 3 or 4 years ago, but it just seemed like he was someone who had some promise, had one bad season, gone. And then we all hear about how he was interested in the quarterback of Patrick Mahomes and didn't draft him. So just the thing is there, like that was a guy who I felt like might not have been like a yes, but maybe challenged John Mara's thinking here and there and went after people that maybe the Giants group of I guess the heads of the Giants like might not have agreed with. And I don't know. That's just like the way I think about it. And maybe Judge just isn't that guy. Maybe Judge is the guy that just agrees with Gettleman, agrees with Mara, and agrees with whoever made those signings. I'm sure you know about the Verderosa situation and the whole Pat Hanlon. And, Verderosa was saying, oh, yeah, Abrams was the guy who's in charge of all these bad signings. So maybe it was Kevin Abrams who made the original the signings, and Judge was like, okay with it. I don't know. I just feel like Judge doesn't protest anything except when he throws his offensive coordinators under the bus and they get fired the next day or two later. But I agree. I think Gettleman, he won't get fired like he should. He'll have the whole retire, I'm going to step down and retire thing. So it'll make it not going to say it wasn't his fault, but he's going to get the better of it by getting that excuse. And then I think Judge, from the reports, it seems like he's staying. From the reports.
Yeah. And also what I'd say is a lot of people who say keep Judge for another year, one of their main things they say is he hasn't gotten a fair shot. Yeah, that's true. But you can't, not everything's fair. You can't be like, oh, poor Joe, he didn't have a fair shot at this job. Now we have to wait an extra year. That's not how this works. This is a business. This is a team that needs to continue, that needs to rebuild. I don't think you can use that excuse. And yeah, maybe if Joe Judge came in with better circumstances, he'd be doing a better job. Because let's say this, right? In New England, he never had to deal with any circumstances like this. There was never any time where his team had his back against the wall, etc. We get that, all the excuses come out. But it seems like what he specializes in, which is special teams, we can't even do right. We saw the dropped the kickoff where it landed on the 4-yard line and Pharaoh Cooper's just kind of looking around like whatever. We've seen the terrible punts from Riley Dixon. We've seen the terrible special teams coverage. You'd think, hey, I'm kind of under fire. Things aren't going well for us. Let me go to what I know I do well, or what I thought or think I can do well. Let me go back to special teams and get that unit one of the best in the league. I saw a tweet. Our special teams was the top 5 special teams in the league before Judge came in. Judge has come in. Now we're in the bottom half of the league. We should have been number 1 at this point. We're one of the very few teams that has a special teams coach or a former special teams coach as a coordinator, or as a head coach. He's not a coordinator. He should be a special teams coordinator. That's where he's going to be going next year, hopefully. But my God, it's frustrating.
Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of New York Giants fans, especially within the YouTube community. And obviously, once again, we don't have a say in anything that goes on in the building. But, there's a certain amount of fans, and there's a certain group of fans that do want to keep Joe Judge. And I, along with other fans, constantly press him about that. And they're saying, oh, well, look at this coach, look at that coach. They got a 3rd year. Well, here's a couple examples, and here's why. Bill Parcells, they're talking about, oh, well, his first 2 years of record. Well, he had 3 wins in his first year, and I think he had 5 or more wins his next year. Cliff Kingsbury, actually, no, let me actually go to Zach Taylor for a minute. 2 wins in his first year, 4 wins in his second year, 10 wins with a division clincher today in his 3rd year. So what do you see there? Progress. What do you not see with Joe Judge? You don't see progress. Matt Patricia, obviously, go back to his days in Detroit. They went 6-10 their first season. I think they had 4 wins in their second season with a tie. So once again, it's about progress. And this whole GM situation, in terms of what Josh was talking about, in terms of the yes man, I don't think Joe Judge is yes man. I think John Mara likes him because he thinks that Joe Judge is very innovative for some reason, and that he has a mind of Bill Belichick where he could possibly be the GM, and he likes the way he's selecting talent and stuff. I think Dave Gettleman possibly was another yes man that kind of wanted, for lack of better words, to kiss his ass when he wanted to keep Eli Manning as the quarterback. And Eli's my favorite player. I will say that till the day I die as a New York Giants fan. But he was one of the reasons that Dave Gettleman was probably the GM was because he was an inside guy and he wanted to keep Eli Manning, which prompted John Mara to hire him over guys like Louis Riddick and all these other guys. And what frustrates me about this whole situation is just the GM search. There is no winning situation unless you go out there and fire Joe Judge. But we all know that's not going to happen, because if you select an inside guy, here's a positive. And I wrote an article on this a couple of days ago. A positive is, if it's Kevin Abrams, you're only on that 1 year possibly, because he was the interim general manager between the time that Reese was fired and Gettleman was hired in 2017. So he has a little bit of experience, not too much experience in that field. So maybe 1 year, maybe have him as the de facto GM, but actually have Judge control the reins, 10 picks, free agency if there's any money there, and go from there. And then let him fall on his ass if he actually fails in 2022, fire him, whatever. And then you could have Kevin Abrams go back to the cap position, the assistant general manager position, and actually hire somebody. But you're delaying the inevitable. If you do go out there and get an outside GM, you're banking on somebody who may not be a proven guy. I know John Dorsey has been tossed around as a candidate, but let's be honest, his days in Cleveland weren't good. He's with the Lions now, out of all teams, as a personnel executive or something like that. And then he was with the Chiefs for a few years before Patrick Mahomes was a starter. You know, he did develop, I think, 1 or 2 or 3 good teams over there, but the salary cap just went up and up and up, where they were put in a really bad position. So that's what I tend to believe with older GMs. They tend to run up the cap with, some talent. Meanwhile, you have some younger guys across sports where they can get the talent just at a cheaper price by developing all this other stuff. But that's a lose situation, because even if you do get the right GM candidate like Ed Dodds from the Colts or Joe Schoen from the Bills, they have to stick with Joe Judge for a year likely. And then with that being said, if Joe Judge gets fired, then the GM is going to spend a lot of time just getting the next head coach's guys in. If the head coach doesn't like, let's just say he doesn't like Quincy Roche, he's going to cut him and he has to find another rotational edge rusher. If he doesn't like, let's say, Nick Gates, if he's healthy next year, if he doesn't like this guy, whatever, that he has to take the time in the draft picks. And we have more draft picks this upcoming draft than probably the next draft, unless they trade back in a couple of scenarios, but I don't think that's going to happen. But with that being said, you're going to have less assets the year after where you might need them because, possibly a new head coach coming in. So it's really a lose-lose situation all around unless you fire a Judge. But that's not the way the Giants are thinking, and it's unfortunate. In terms of the Steven Verderosa, Pat Hanlon thing, I think it's just a mess. I think it's just a mess. It's a bad look for the Giants. Verderosa, he's had some scrappy views in the past, thinks really positively about Eli Apple for some reason. He was fired in 2020. I don't know if you guys saw that one article by Tyler Dunn, where basically Steven Verderosa was the anonymous source, anonymous scout. He was fired, and I'll say this. A lot of Giant fans out there, they say, oh, well, I want to wish for the old Jerry Reese back. Personally, I wouldn't. The last 2 years of Gettleman and Judge in terms of drafting have been good. You've been able to somewhat see a foundation. And it's unfortunate that Dave Gettleman's going to go. Obviously, he deserves to. But then you're going to keep Judge, and it's going to be a circus all over again. But the last 2 years of Judge and Gettleman in terms of drafting hasn't been bad, other than Kadarius Toney and maybe a few other picks. But something Jerry Reese was unable to do was hit those 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th rounders where we've been able to hit on some of those picks, Aaron Robinson, et cetera, et cetera. So I would take the last 2 years of Gettleman and Judge over Jerry Reese. But with that being said, it's really a lose-lose situation.
So for anyone watching, I want to go to our final topic, but if anyone's got any questions or comments, please comment them in the bio or description. I don't even know what to say. In the live chat on YouTube or in the live chat on Twitter. I don't even know what the live chat on Twitter is called, but I'll just call it that. And then you can comment or put your questions in the chat. I do want to go to our last topic, being the quarterback, because that's another thing, because you mentioned Eli Manning being your favorite player, and there's a big situation happening at quarterback with the Giants. And no, I'm not talking about Mike the Draft Neck Glennon or Jake Fromm, and they're not so good at playing quarterbackness, right? And Mike Glennon being the worst signing, I would say, of this offseason for the Giants. I don't know why we went out there and we're like, all right, we got to get Mike Glennon as one of our first 3 signings. There are so many, and were so many better backup quarterbacks that were better options. And the way to see that Mike Glennon has made millions of dollars throughout his 9-year career and still has such a bad record with every team he's played for, and yet still finding a team to go and sign with is unbelievable. And maybe it's just every team's like, oh, maybe this guy's got a bright side. I don't know. Anyway, the quarterback situation I'm talking about, as I'm sure you know, Alex, is Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones and what's his future? Is his future? So I'll ask you the question. Do you think Daniel Jones is on the New York Giants next season?
Yes.
And do you think that? Oh, sorry. I was just going to say.
You could ask the question.
I was just going to say. So you think Daniel Jones is going to be on the team next season? Will he sign the 5th year after that? I know it's far in advance. It's like 2023 we're thinking about. Will he sign the 5th year? Then the Giants go and draft a quarterback when maybe next year is a better QB class, because I know this year's draft QB class is not so good.
Yeah, so I have a couple of different views on this, obviously. I think the Giants are going to be in line with a lot of people and the way they think. I think Daniel Jones will be here next year. I think he should be here next year, but that doesn't mean he's a franchise quarterback at all. I think they'll decline that 5th-year option because obviously that's for 2023, and they'll probably try to get a free agent quarterback, whether it's Derek Carr or somebody else, to try to trade for Russell Wilson, or just go out and try to trade up for Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, some of the other quarterbacks coming out then. In terms of Daniel Jones, I was a big Daniel Jones believer coming into this year. I would defend him on a lot of occasions. And I know last year a lot of people were, not so keen on him because the way the offense was performing. Though, obviously you see this year, Daniel Jones may have not been the best in his last few games as his New York Giant, especially this year. But the way the offense looks without him is very, very poor. I think we've been able to see that in the last few games, obviously with Mike Glennon and Jake Fromm. And I understand, Daniel Jones is an average quarterback. But with that being said, next year, obviously the quarterback class coming up, it's not good. It is not good. It's not anything that you should be, you got to reach for this guy. You got to go get this guy. In my opinion, that would be a lot like the 2019 class. Yeah, Kyler Murray's your number one quarterback. Who's after that? Daniel Jones, Dwayne Haskins. There was a lot of concerns with those other quarterbacks, but this is basically another 2019 class, which obviously the Giants would be very, very stupid to go out and select a quarterback. With the O-line needs, with the edge needs, with the linebacker needs, O-line, it has to be number one. Where I actually had somebody tell me last night that you drafting a quarterback before drafting O-line is actually the right thing to do, which I'm like thinking to myself, no, it is not the right thing to do, because you build the O-line, you build the wide receivers and all that other stuff before you get the quarterback. So the next year, in the terms of the draft, they need to go out and get the O-line fixed once and for all. It may not take just next year, it may take the year after. But you have to go out and get one of those tackles, maybe a center like the guy from Iowa, Tyler Linderbaum, who actually just got injured. Hopefully he's okay. But with that being said, decline Daniel Jones' 5th-year option. Use him as that bridge quarterback next year. But in that case, you have to use the money in free agency, whatever you're going to have from cutting a bunch of guys. You have to use that towards getting an actual backup quarterback. If Teddy Bridgewater is a free agent, which I believe he is, Jameis Winston's a free agent. There's a couple of guys out there you can get, obviously, with a couple of negatives because of injuries and whatnot, but you need to seriously go out there and get a guy like Tyrod Taylor, who's going to really compete for the spot against Daniel Jones for the starting spot. So it's a situation where it's not a bad situation if Tyrod Taylor wins, because whoever wins, wins. If Daniel Jones is the second quarterback coming into the season next year, he's the second quarterback. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't matter anything, because we all know as Giant fans, it's not going to work out for Daniel Jones here at least. So use him as the bridge quarterback next year. And then the following year, if you can trade him, do whatever. Now, if you could trade him this year, I don't think that's going to happen personally. But if you can trade him this year for a team that's very quarterback needy, I don't think that there's going to be a market for him unless it's Pittsburgh, because we all saw what happened with the Teddy Bridgewater thing. We also saw what happened with the Sam Darnold thing. So I don't think a lot of teams are going to take as many chances on quarterbacks from other teams that have failed, at least within the next few years. With that being said, draft a quarterback in 2023 or get a quarterback. If you can get a quarterback next year, fine, but use Daniel Jones as the bridge quarterback.
And we did get a question asking what positions do we take with our draft pick, which you covered that too, and the same thing, saying O-line and stuff of that. O-line, and would you say edge? It's probably like the top two.
If Aiden Hutchinson or Kayvon Thibodeau is there with the first pick, I would definitely take one of them. if both of them are not there, I'm smacking both O-line positions. Take Tyler Linderbaum and take Evan Neal or Kenyon Green or whoever you're taking, because, I was in a YouTube live stream a couple of days ago. I was watching it, and people were talking about, with the way that the Giants want to run the football with Saquon Barkley, Devontae Booker, whoever, getting a tackle like Evan Neal is great and all, but you really need a guy like Kenyon Green, who A, is a good run blocker, B, when you have a good interior O-line, it's really going to do some things when you're at the final point of a game, and you're just going to go ahead and, just try to chew some clock. You want to keep pushing and pushing no matter how many guys they put in the box. And your interior O-line can only do that. Your tackles, obviously, they could get beat and whatever can happen. But you have to attack a lot of positions next year. In terms of the O-line, in terms of the offense, I think we will need to draft a late-round receiver because none of ours can stay healthy. But with that being said, attack at least one. If Hutchinson and Thibodeau are not there with the number 4, number 3 pick, wherever we land with the first pick, first round pick, could just go ahead and attack tackle and interior line. That's what I want.
TGT, Alex, what's your thoughts on the KD situation and the draft? What do you think who do you think the Giants should target position-wise?
I want to start with the draft because it is kind of in chronological order. With the draft, I agree. I think one of the picks has to be O-line no matter what. I don't care what the value is. And one of the picks I think should be best player available. And I think, to be honest, might actually be O-line anyway. I think Tyler Linderbaum at that second pick probably will be the best player available. He might even be the best player available at that first pick. I think Evan Neal's going to go before we pick. So that's why I don't think we're going to be able to get him. Someone like Kyle Hamilton, I really like, but obviously safety is not the biggest need, nor does it have the highest positional value. But I think building that O-line, but if Kyle Hamilton's there with that second pick, it's going to be hard to resist him or someone like Karlaftis or any of those, or Karlaftis or any of those other edge rushers, like you said. For the QB situation, I'd say Daniel Jones as the bridge for sure. And for someone I like to bring in, who not many people are talking about, Marcus Mariota. I think you bring him in, see what he's got. He's got some upside with the rushing. Why not bring him in, see what he's got? When he's, backed up Derek Carr in Las Vegas, he seems solid. So bring someone like that in. You kind of know what you're getting already with Tyrod Taylor, kind of feel like. Whereas with Marcus Mariota, you could find some upside. Not saying that he could be like the next thing for us at quarterback, but I think you can get some better upside there with Marcus Mariota, and you might be able to get him even on a cheaper deal.
I just didn't know if Tyrod Taylor is the guy. I'm like trying to think about it too. Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Teddy Bridgewater, like those are. I mean, is Tyrod Taylor a free agent this upcoming offseason?
He's a free agent.
Yeah.
Year,
I'd love Jameis Winston too. I think he's a good quarterback, but
it's like those 4 to top the list. I just don't know if we go out there and spend. Like, do we get an undrafted free agent quarterback? And
Jameis Winston's going to cost too much money. I also think. I don't think we're going to.
He's also coming off a torn ACL
injury.
So
yeah,
a lot of teams won't try to, go out and spend too much on someone's coming back from that.
Yeah, I get that. I don't know. Maybe a Nick Foles, Andy Dalton. We saw what he did to us. Who knows?
Wow.
All right. Well,
go ahead.
Just as a reminder, though, we were obviously talking about whether, who's going to be there or whatnot. So the draft order as of right now, and I'm looking off NFL standings, but I know who has what pick. We have as of right now, our first pick, as in the Giants' actual first round pick, is the 4th, and the Jets is the 3rd. So Jaguars probably will take one of the edge rushers, and I think the Lions will either take an edge rusher or will take a quarterback, whatever the case may be. So I think it's my personal opinion, someone's going to end up taking a quarterback or some stupid position, whatever that may be. Jets might even take a safety 3rd overall, but that's the Jets for you. So I think either it's going to be Hutchinson, Thibodeau, or Neal there, and they're going to fall into our lap. But I think definitely, which I think the Bears pick is 9th right now, I definitely think Tyler Linderbaum will be there. And if not, you go out and get Kenyon Green, once again, interior O-line, which the Giants severely need.
Yeah, and also what I would say is the guy from NC State. I know he's a tackle, but some have said he could play guard as well, possibly at the NFL. So that's another guy to keep your eye on. But yeah, hopefully one of those guys falls to us. But I don't know. It's so sad that we're talking about the draft again in early January. We were talking about it already in December.
One more week.
I just want to talk about the draft like in February. That's when I want to start talking about the draft. Let's start after the Super Bowl, after we get a nice Lombardi.
Yeah.
Get out of there. Start talking about the draft. What are we going to do with the 32nd overall pick? That's what we want to know. Quite a while for that to happen, though.
Yep.
quite a while. Alex, thank you so much for joining us tonight for the live stream. Again, like Alex was saying, I wish it was in a better state of this football team, and hopefully it will be. I just don't know when. You can go follow Big Blue in the Bronx on Twitter at BBlue in the Bronx, and obviously go subscribe on YouTube as well. And Alex, just your final thoughts. Thank you so much again for coming on.
Yeah, I always, like going on other people's channels, whether it's for call-ins or just, having me on, because that's kind of the way I started out my career, having content creators on my channel. And they obviously gave the same respect to me as, I give everybody else when I go on their channels and stuff like that. For my channel, like, comment, subscribe, and do all that good stuff. Tomorrow we will be streaming the Cleveland Browns Pittsburgh Steelers game before I end up going to Florida the next day. But my usual podcast that I do, that's basically mainly revolved around the Giants, which is basically going to be the Bears recap. That's going to be out on Tuesday at 12:30. And then Wednesday on the NYY News TV channel is going to be my podcast with my brother that we're starting on the New York Yankees. It's called Twin Bill, so definitely check that out on their channel. But some good stuff coming up this week. But we got one more week to go. And then we'll be watching playoff football again without the New York Giants. And we'll see what happens. But once again, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. For everyone watching, we appreciate it. Do all the good stuff, like you were saying, like, comment, subscribe, follow, all of that. And we'll see you next time. Peace.